SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Have you seen our upgraded currency with enhanced security features? Identifying a genuine banknote is easy. Just look, feel and tilt. Hold the banknote against the light and look for the Big 5 watermark unique to each denomination. Feel the race print on Madiba's portrait and tilt to see the security thread change color. For more, download the SA Reserve Bank Currency app and spend your money with confidence. Our money, our pride. SA Reserve Bank, connecting us.
Borussia Mönchengladbach knows that only a win will make their plan to get to the top half a success. But VfL Wolfsburg's game plan is to grab victory away from home to cement their top half position. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the exciting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and VfL Wolfsburg this Friday, 10 November at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 9 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be in conversation with, I think, somebody who is a relatively inspiring South African. I say relatively because I don't want to give it all away yet. And he's an executive at Aspen, but recently recognized for the contribution that he has made to humanity more broadly. And there's never been a better time to center humanity and all of the things that we share in common as people. And I suppose really trying to lift the profile of those common values. So that's the conversation that we're going to be having in the next hour. Before we get to it though, lots of your reaction to the open line. I know so many of you feel very strongly either for or against the deployment of the army. And yeah, we welcome, of course, the contribution nonetheless, regardless of which side you take on that issue. So we'll take a couple of WhatsApp voice notes from the open line, and then we'll get into our conversation for the second hour of the show.
House Cathy, deployment of soldiers, it is clear that the police are just there to earn salary and to accept a bribe. South Africa, it is where it is because of the police. They arrest a person today, later afternoon that person is out, especially those ones which are selling drugs. However, the deployment of the soldiers, our borders, the soldiers are there, but people are getting cross into South Africa. Who are we going to trust in beautiful countries such as South Africa, Skosana, Northern Ireland?
Good morning, Cathy. Andre in Cape Town. Yeah, Cathy, you know what? The previous caller, Ali, he's speaking the whole truth, Cathy. If you consider what will happen if the ANC lose an election, not necessarily the next election, 2024, but an election. They are in control of all the armed forces. Do you think the ANC will just hand over power to whomever? The day the ANC lose at the ballot box is the day that South Africa will be thrust into a civil war, and that's the unfortunate and nasty reality of our situation in South Africa.
Morning, Sis Cathy. Lovely show. Siskati, you know, our government, they are waiting or taking too long, waiting for crime to escalate before they can take an action. Siskati, I like to ask a question to Jessica Kaunda at Messina. Since President Ramaphosa came to the border post to deploy those 200 police something, do they see a different, does is something happening there? Is it a difference since Ramaphosa came to deploy those police there at border post? I thank you, Sis Katie. I hope Jessica will answer me. Thank you.
Deployment of army is long overdue. They're just sitting doing nothing when the country is burning. They should help the Mapanyazas patrol the street as well. People who are living in suburbs don't understand this, but people in the low class areas, they feel it. It is sad. People who are staying next to these mining towns where the Zamazamas are operating, they feel the pressure. They hear the gun sound, machine gun, late hours at night, they don't sleep. So let's just do anything we can to try to make the environment safe. So police, soldiers in fact should be retrained because they just sit and do nothing. They're not even getting ready for the army and when we got the problems. They don't understand it. So maybe this one will keep them on their toes and so that they exercise and be ready for the day of deployment.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point. Let me welcome into studio, dressed as a very patriotic South African, I must say, Dr. Stavros Nicolaou. You're donned in your Proteas gear and still hopeful that we stand a chance, I am assuming, of getting to the other side in the World Cup.
Cathy, firstly, it's a great privilege to be here again with you. I think the Proteas have done exceptionally well. It's just unfortunate that you've got, or you had 2 World Cups running concurrently, and most of the world's eyes, or certainly from where South Africans sit, were on the rugby. But I think our cricket team has done exceptionally well in India. It's not easy to go and play in India. Very often the conditions don't suit you. And we are already secure of a position in the semi-final. We play Australia next Thursday. We beat Australia earlier in the tournament. So I think our prospects are looking good. And if we were to go to the final and presumably play India in the final and beat them in their own backyard, that is right up there with one of South Africa's greatest sporting achievements. It's not easy to go to India, play under their conditions, and do well. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and I hope the whole nation rallies behind the Proteas. We are playing later today. We play our semi-final on Thursday, and God willing, we'll be in the final next Sunday.
If we win the World Cup, Dr. Nicola, I know that you sit on various committees where sometimes you get to interact with the number one citizen. Will you be motivating for another public holiday?
I think it's not, for me, it's not about public holidays. It's really about national pride here. And it's incredible the power that sport has around the world. I was fortunate enough to be in Paris for a number of games and got to interact with the French business community as well. They've got something called Business France. I met a number of French ministers whilst I was there, and all of them spoke in the best terms about the Springboks, and it helps with your profiling of a country. So I think it's really good that we've got the Springboks and Proteas both performing so well, because it does help with your overall country positioning. People draw significant credibility over how you manage your sporting countries. And I only had the best things to say about the Springboks, including some of the ministers. And I was in Greece last week, And similarly, I didn't realize the extent to which they were following the Springboks. I thought Greece was a country only for football. I didn't think they even knew who the Springboks are. So it does really help when you do well with your overall country narrative and positioning as well.
Let's talk about the reason why you were in Greece, because you have been honored with this prestigious, really, award, and it's around your contribution towards humanitarian efforts, and among those is what is your global activism in the healthcare space and your commitment to healthcare equality. And this is ironic to speak of because you're an executive at what is really a multinational pharmaceutical institution. So when we talk about big pharma, we're very much including the likes of you in that conversation, and yet you're also described as an activism in the space. How does that work? Tell me and tell our listeners more about the journey that you have traveled.
A good starting point, and I think this is a very much Aspen's philosophy, is that you only really exist in the healthcare business, whether it's healthcare or pharmaceuticals. I use it interchangeably, for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to improve the quality of life of patients and to save lives. So every morning when I wake up and I go to work, I don't need to remotivate myself because I know I'm getting up for a particular purpose, and that purpose is how do I improve quality of life, how do I save lives on that day, and then you can kind of reflect at the end of the day and the end of the week how things have gone. And that is very much a fundamental policy at Aspen as well. So we're rather unique in that respect. We're only a 25-year-old company, but in that short 25-year period, we've been front and center of 3 pandemics on the African continent. The first was HIV/AIDS, where we pioneered generic antiretrovirals. We were able to bring the prices down from around $10,000 per patient per year for first-line treatment down to $180 per patient per year. So that allowed us to significantly accelerate access to treatment for HIV patients. Hundreds of thousands of lives were saved. We did the same thing with multi-drug resistant TB. I won't go into the details. And then, of course, more recently, we were the first to produce the COVID-19 vaccine under contract from Johnson & Johnson. We were significant suppliers globally of general anesthetics, which are required to ventilate patients. So I think that our positioning as an African company, and we've never forgotten our roots. Our roots are in Africa, as are my roots. So it's great going and accepting an award in Greece from the Greek president. But in my acceptance speech, I was very clear to say I'm very proud of my Hellenic and Greek origins and extraction, but I am an African, deeply rooted here in Africa. And now to sort of round off on your question, what I am particularly passionate about, and I think Aspen has been particularly passionate about since our inception, is the issue of health security and health equality in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. It's really sad. One of the saddest reflections in my life, if not the saddest, is to see how badly Africa was treated during the COVID pandemic. It's well recorded, well rehearsed. Most people know about it, but it's still painful. It's 2-3 years on, but it's still painful. And we were left at the back end of the queue for vaccines and even some of the basic medicines. I mean, India shut their borders on us. We were expecting vaccines from India. Parts of Europe did the same. And we learned a very valuable and bitter lesson, I might add, because the lesson here is that unless you take control of your own situation, you set up your own capabilities and capacities, you will never, ever be in a position to provide your citizens health care. And that's the lesson. But the good thing, just to conclude, is that since then, the African continent, led by our own president here, President Ramaphosa, organizations like the African Union, Africa CDC, Dr. Jean Kaseya, and others on the continent, we meet regularly, have taken control of the situation, and we are starting to see the establishment of our own capacities and capabilities on the continent, so that Africa is never ever again left in the lurch, and lives and livelihoods that could have been saved were not. We need to spare those lives and livelihoods in the event of the next pandemic.
What do you currently see as some of the biggest challenges to healthcare equality? And I would really want you to speak from a South African perspective, because of course you would also have insights globally, but what is preventing us currently from having that equity? Because the gap is so big in this country.
Yeah. So look, I'm going to talk about South Africa, but I could equally speak about Africa, and I think we've got to look at the two interchangeably, because South Africa has taken the lead on the continent. You know, healthcare wasn't, Cathy, something that was really spoken about. It was kind of left in the corner there and not part of the mainstream economy. And boy, have we learned how important it is to actually take all healthcare considerations into full context. So healthcare is now spoken about in a very different breath to what it was 4 years ago. So what are some of the, if I can call it, biggest disenablers to improved healthcare outcomes in our country? Firstly, we have a private and a public sector. And we do acknowledge that there is an inequality gap therein. So what do we need to do to fix the situation? So I'm going to give you 4 points. There are many, but I'm just going to focus on 4 points. Number one is we need a much closer collaboration between the private and the public sectors. Right now, the two sectors are largely segregated from each other. So you're not able to optimize your resources that you've got, your resources and capacity that you've got across the country. And that is what business has proposed in terms of what does NHI look like futuristically. We believe that NHI must be that bridge between the private and the public sector. So that's number one. Number two is that we don't, particularly in the public sector, don't have appropriate infrastructure. And part of this is because our facilities are overwhelmed by number of patients. So you're seeing an increasing demand in the system, a shrinking budget, and also infrastructure that is crumbling. How do you fix that? A very good suggestion, again, that came from the private sector, and I just want to underscore here that there is excellence in both the public sector and also the private sector. I was speaking to a group of doctors, the thrombosis specialists, led by Professor Barry Jacobson on Saturday night. They asked me to do a keynote. And I just looked at some of the public sector doctors in that room. They are excellent. So there's excellence in the private and in the public sector. But you cannot go on with shrinking budgets and a crumbling infrastructure. So suggestion number two is that the private sector, through the schemes, the medical aids as we call them, take on what we call low-cost benefit options. So these are people that are not, they don't have medical aid at the moment. They work in not particularly well-paying jobs, but can be brought into a low-cost scheme. We estimate between 6 to 10 million patients could be taken off the hands of the state and put into private facilities. That will help immensely. It will stretch the healthcare rand, and it will place less burden on what are overwhelmed facilities and infrastructure at the moment. Number three is no healthcare system is effective unless you've got an appropriate and suitable amount of doctors and healthcare workers. And I'm afraid, this is well known by everyone in the country, there is a shortage of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, etc. in our country. Now, how do you fix that? Two ways. First of all, you've got to create more capacity to train and graduate doctors and pharmacists and others. I happen to sit on the Wits University Board of Governors. And I think the statistics are that around 10,000 plus people apply to get into medicine at Wits, and only 300 odd get taken in.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got to build more capacity. And again, the private sector is standing by to put up this capacity. And, we can double the training of doctors and, the whole 6-year curriculum can be doubled because they're constraints at the moment. And for me, that would change the world. The other thing we need to do is we have not properly embraced digitalization, digital solutions in healthcare in the country. So I have a daughter that's studying medicine at the moment, and she said, Dad, we're in the public facilities. You can spend the first 10 minutes trying to find the patient records. Okay, so now you've got a doctor running around, a nurse running around. Digitalize the system. And if you've got a consultation that lasts 10 or 15 minutes, all of a sudden, you've doubled the number of doctors you've got because they're not running around for 10 minutes trying to find the patient's records. What's even worse, if you don't find the patient's records and something goes wrong because there's an allergy that wasn't picked up, whatever it might be, then that places an additional burden on the healthcare system. So that's number 3. Now, number 4 is very much around prevention of disease. Okay, so we don't do well. Most cancers can be treated effectively if they are picked up early. And I'll tell you what is becoming an increasing burden on the healthcare system and is actually more alarming than HIV and TB and the infectious diseases we're used to in this country is diabetes and cancer.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't talk, Cathy, about when are we in the next pandemic. We're there already with cancer and diabetes. But are we picking up cancer? Are we picking up diabetes? Basic diabetic diagnostics, access to treatment. That's not happening. So we need a concerted effort on what we call non-communicable diseases in our country, because if we don't nip this in the bud in the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to overwhelm us much more than HIV did. So those are, if I were to put a 4-point plan forward, that would be my 4-point plan.
We're in conversation with Dr. Stavros Nicolaou. He's a group senior executive with Aspen Pharmacare, but also very active in the business community and a big advocate for South Africa, not only investment. You would have seen him front and center of part of the BRICS summit and some of the work that is being done by business leaders in that space. So when we continue, we'll be talking about more broadly the state of our country. I know that there is so much to be depressed about. The morale is low. People are upset about the state of governance, upset about how things are faring in this country. What is the confidence that we can get from individuals like himself who have a voice in these important spaces about whether that future can change, that things can get better from what they are right now? We'll continue that conversation. I'll also take some of your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's 10:30, time for the latest news headlines.
Good morning, Cathy. In your headlines, the alleged rape of 3 girls at a private boarding school in Butterworth in the Eastern Cape has left their parents traumatized. The allegations surfaced after social workers conducted a routine wellness check at the school. The investigating officer is expected to be back on the stand in the Senzo Meiwameda case in the High Court in Pretoria this morning. Sergeant Vusumuzi Mukhane will appear as the state gets set to lead evidence regarding vehicle tracking data in the case's trial within a trial. And EFF leader Julius Malema has called on African leaders to make economic development of the continent their priority. He says the issue of migration can only be addressed when African leaders develop the capacity to resolve the socio-economic problems that their countries are facing. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11. Cathy has your SAFM market update.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 66 to the dollar, 22 rand 82 to the pound, and 19 rand 91 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended low. The JSE is red in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe also lower this hour. Gold is trading at $1,954. Platinum $858 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $80.19 a barrel.
Everyone talks about value, and then there's Absa Value. We give you room to breathe with up to 57 days interest-free on qualifying credit card purchases. Value-added benefits like up to 30% real cash back, depending on your tier. And not paying a cent for your rewards. It's all this and more.
Join the bank that does more and elevate to amazing value. Apply for an ABSA credit card or package today. Learn more at absa.co.za. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Manchester United are only interested in maximum points to keep their fans delighted.
Fernandez, a captain's goal.
However, Luton Town FC are not willing to travel back to Kenilworth Road without the valuable 3 points.
If it's a Tahitom, listen to that noise.
Will the Red Devils seal victory at Old Trafford, or will the Hatters prevail away from home? This is the Premier League. Catch the thrilling encounter between Manchester United and Luton Town FC. The Saturday, 11 November at 4 p.m. Live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
Piece of good news for writers out there.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
Dr. Jerry Mufokeng Wamaketa is head judge of the competition.
And you ask the question, who? And I want to say everybody, young, old, black, white.
For a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. Dr. Stavros Nicolaou is our guest for this morning, recently receiving the Humanitarian Award from the Greek president. And it's an opportunity really to reflect on some of the contributions he's made as an activist within the global healthcare space, but also I think more broadly as a voice, a respected voice in different circles in this country. You know, when we started off the conversation speaking a bit about the Proteas and the Springboks and what they've done for the country, you spoke about, you know, how it helps to position brand South Africa to the rest of the world. And when we look at how South Africans celebrated that win, we were saying throughout the entire tournament, at least by the time we got to the semi-finals, that we need this win because it's just going to give us something that we don't have right now, which is hope, and it represents different things for different people. But it's been a bad time for hope in South Africa because while some do enjoy the benefits and the dividends of this democracy, the majority of South Africans don't. How do you sell hope in those circumstances and to that majority that says our lives are not improving?
Cathy, I think firstly, let me say that there is significant, I suppose, dismay in the country at the moment for a whole host of reasons, partly because of some of the global economic headwinds we are currently experiencing. So when there's a conflict elsewhere, unfortunately, it reverberates into Africa and into South Africa, regrettably. So that's a part of it. The second part of it is some of our own failings in our country. Now, we can adopt a view that let's lose complete hope and throw our arms up in the air, or we can try and see where are those areas that through a concerted collective effort in our country we can try and make a difference. And I'm not suggesting that there's a magic wand. A magic wand doesn't exist, and there are many countries around the world that are experiencing similar situations to ourselves. I've just come back from Egypt, for example. Inflation is sitting at 42% in Egypt, and their currency is devalued significantly. So there's a hardship that gets imposed on the average citizen, as is the case in our country. So what gives me hope for the future? So let me talk firstly about the need to unify a nation firstly, because no plan, no matter how well set out it is, can never be executed unless we have a socially cohesive society and a society that pulls in the same direction. And that's why we saw the response we did and the reaction we did when the Springboks won, and when they were even winning, before they even won the World Cup. The whole nation was rallying behind Sia and the team. And I was fortunate enough to visit the team in Paris before the French quarter-final. And those young men realized the responsibility that rested on their shoulders. So I think we should commend them for the way they conducted themselves, first and foremost as South Africans and human beings before rugby players. So what I'm saying is we need to find those touch points that are going to unite a nation, and very often it's found in sport. But it's short-lived. Okay, we need to have a sustainable plan around having this 12 months of the year, not for a month, and hopefully the Proteas will win and we'll get a carry-over effect. But it all centers around one thing, and that is fixing the economy. So you start fixing the economy, people start getting hope again. So what gives me hope in the country? What gives me hope is we're starting to see for the first time, I believe, a coordinated and cohesive effort, partnership between business and government in the form of Business for South Africa. So we've looked and reflected very deeply as business, organized business in South Africa, and we have said, do we sit back and watch an economy crash and be complicit in that? Or do we put shoulder to the wheel and get involved and see where we can try and make a difference? We might not succeed, but if you don't try, you will never know the answer. And obviously the latter is the way to go. One thing I must say is South Africa has a resilient and a very effective private sector. And we went to government and we spoke to them on over many occasions and finally realized this partnership. Now, what is this partnership? A partnership is, we said there are a number of disenablers to growing the economy. There are three in particular where we would like to assist with government. And we want to assist because, unfortunately, the capacity, expertise and skills have been hollowed out from the public sector in this country, regrettably, over a period of time. But you've got that capacity, skills and expertise in the private sector. So how do we best utilize that? Identify the three disenablers. What are the three disenablers? So first is energy security. Number two is infrastructure, supply chain and logistics. We've seen what's been happening with our logistics. We weren't able to capitalize on the commodity boom, which is really sad for our country because it would have changed many people's lives. And then thirdly is crime and corruption. So we said those are for us the three big disenablers. If we partly or fully fix those, we can get onto a very different economic trajectory. So we have made, under the right governance structure, as private sector organized business under the Business for South Africa label, we have made available capacity on a pro bono basis to assist in fixing these three crisis areas in our country. Let me just add a final dimension. I'm fairly confident, and it's always risky going out publicly like this, but I am fairly confident that in the next 18 months we would have resolved our energy crisis in the main. I'm not saying completely, but I think that one of the most significant developments, and that's why we need acceleration of the ERA, one of the most significant developments is the independent producers of energy in the country. So those independent producers have already produced 5,000 megawatts in a short space of time. So I'm confident between the steps that are being taken at Eskom, but more importantly, the independent energy producers, that our country will be on a very different energy trajectory. And the energy crisis has been incredibly demotivating for our country. And I think it will lift people. It will, excuse the pun, it will shine a bright light in every home. if we're able to fix it, because that's been one of the single biggest demotivators. And this is my final point on energy, is that you can take a view in life on a crisis being turned into an opportunity, or you can say a crisis is going to sink us and you sit back and you sink, right? So I think we've also got to look at things like the green energy, independent producers of energy as a significant growth opportunity in our country as well.
And what about the fact that, Dr. Mohlahlana, you have differing opinions on this involvement of the private sector with government? Not everybody is comfortable with this relationship, because there are concerns that all that is doing is that it's opening the public service up for corporate capture, and that yes, there's services that are being delivered on a pro bono basis, but part of what that effectively also does is that it sets the private sector up to be the first beneficiaries in line where procurement from the state is involved. And so you have this allegiance, of sort taking place between the two.
Cathy, it's an excellent question, and I'm so pleased you asked it, because I was going to reference it later on. But let me just preface what I'm going to say by one obvious statement. I think in life I've never met a pessimist that's actually solved a problem or succeeded in a business. You have to be optimistic, and sometimes naively so. So with that prefacing, we've got to look at what our options are in the country. So if the private sector doesn't get involved, how else do you fix the problem? And I haven't really heard anything plausible coming out. Some people have been critical of this, of course, and justifiably so, because of what's happened in the last 15 years in our country. So I understand fully why people would ask this question. But what are the other options? You can keep trying to hold government to account. If you're in this type of a partnership, and earlier I stressed, it's got to be done under the right governance structures. That's the key here, and that's the security we got to give people out there, and the assurance we give people is you have to have it done under the right governance structures. So that means if you're a person that's in energy, okay, you can't go and become directly involved in the energy procurement, and neither will business become involved in any procurement process across those three areas or three disenablers that I mentioned. So we're very conscious that this has to be government-led. It's got to be at an arm's length. And we've spent extensive time setting out a governance structure as well at the same time. But my last point on this is that accountability is really best expressed through deeds. And I think we've got to watch this publicly, so there's never any creep, as we'd call it. And that is, I suppose, the best assurance you can give anyone. But if we had not tried this, I think we could have gone down, all of us, and said, well, should we have tried this 3 years ago and didn't? So in life, I think when things are looking perilous, I think you've got to try with the resources that you've got. And that's exactly what business is doing here.
Who then becomes in charge of the governance? And as you're saying, South Africans are incredibly skeptical right now. So, in as much as the solutions or the ideas that businesses bring on board are ideas that are solutions to fill the gaps for really a state that is failing in those different aspects, who becomes the watchguard of those relationships? Because you have two very powerful entities of society that are interacting here. So it's good and well to say, well, Cathy, you guys have just, we have your best interests at heart. You've got to trust us, and really we mean well. But after the lessons we have learned, it's hard to trust anybody, especially when every day we are reminded of those failures of governance. I mean, you watch the news, you read the newspapers, you see every day the scandals of billions and billions of rand, and we ask ourselves, How can this be happening? How is it even possible that these are the scandals that are being exposed?
So, Cathy, again, excellent question. So, there are three responses here. The first is that the best way to maintain credibility, transparency, and accountability is through the public. So, public, there's no better watchdog than the public. You can put up governance structures and all the rest of it, and some of them have been discredited and others not, but the public is the best watchdog. Number two, and this is a really important point, we have made sure that the business people and or organizations that are involved, and there's close on 200 organizations, mainly large listed corporates that are involved in this venture. We've made sure that none of these individuals or companies will do any procurement, because that's where the corruption happens. It happens when there's procurement, right? So the best safeguard here is to ensure that there's no procurement that happens. Number three is that you have to have the right governance structure between the two entities, and there is a joint oversight committee that's been put up particularly for that reason. But number two for me is the most important. Ensure there's no procurement that happens from these companies, and then you're fine, because then what can you capture if there's no procurement? So I think that's really an important element, is there will be no procurement done here.
All right. We're in conversation with Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, and we're reflecting, I think, on many things that affect the country. And it's in the wake of his recognition by the Greek president, who has bestowed upon him the humanitarian award for his activism in the healthcare space, but I think also just more broadly to South African society. I want to go to Polokwane, and it looks like you might enjoy hearing from this next guest, Dr. Nicolaou. Dr. Mpolokeng, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Dr. Mpolokeng, and I grew up in Kimberley. And when I was in primary school, I used to work with the Stavros family. And the Stavros, the man was having a pharmaceutical business in Kimberley on the second floor at near the City Hall at Better Old Bakery. That's the property of his parents. So Stavros had about, at that time when I left, he had 4 kids. The first one was Grigory Stavros, and then Angela Stavros and Eli Stavros. And then they had the 4th boy, who when I left was a little boy. So I don't know whether the doctor is the same person that I think was the one.
Oh, Dr. Mpolokeng, I'm sorry, but I think we're going to have to break your heart on this one.
Okay.
Doctor, firstly, very nice to meet you.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're not talking about the same person. My first name is Stavros, not my surname. And Stavros is quite a common name, actually.
I see.
And I only have 2 kids, unfortunately. But nice to meet you anyway.
Yeah. No, I when they said Stavros, I thought maybe you are one of the siblings of the Stavros that I used to be with when I was in high school.
Oh, all right. Sorry about that, Dr. Mpolokeng. Thanks for the call, though. He's out in Polokwane. We'll take a quick break. I'll continue with Dr. Stavros Nicolaou after this.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market. More than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million rand in luxury travel experiences for 2. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app, at your nearest ABSA branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag Rugby Drama Galore. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Experience a spectacular visual feast.
From Prela to Picasso, Pogela to Pemba.
More than 500 works.
Kolowane, Kandinsky, Kenridge and Clark.
Exploring the diversity and looking to the future.
Visit Breaking Down the Walls, 150 years of art collecting at the Iziko South African National Gallery in the Company's Garden, Cape Town. Open Monday to Sunday from 9 to 5. iziko.org.za.
The first leg of the final between the Red Devils and Masandawana is done and dusted, but there are still 90 minutes to decide who will be crowned the champions of Africa. The Casablanca outfit want to shut down Mzansi's capital city, but Kabuyelo believe their carpet football will humble their opponents. Witness the African Football League second leg final, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Wydad Athletic Club on Sunday, 12 November, live on SABC 1 at 2:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point with Dr. Stavros Nicolaou. Dr. Nicolaou, next year this country will be marking 30 years of its democracy. It's a significant moment because we also happen to have an election, which is probably the most. Every election is important, but the most contested election that we've had in this country will be the 2024 elections. What is it that you would want South Africans to be reflecting on as we go into the new year? And I think more specifically about this country, not necessarily where we are, but where we would want to be.
Cathy, for me, a 30-year reflection should involve the good and the bad that's been achieved in the last 30 years. And I think it would be wrong to say there's been only bad things. There have been many highlights, many milestones, many significant achievements, and many things that I think have led to an improved quality of life for some, as you said, not everyone, but certainly there's been incremental progress in some areas, so we should never forget that either. Now, if we reflect on the things that haven't quite worked out, I referenced some of these earlier, and I think the biggest disappointment probably would be that we have not sustained economic growth like we did in the 2000s. So if you go through the 2000 period, there were times where our country, from 2005 to 2007, we ran budget surpluses. We were able to capitalize on the commodity boom at the time. Trevor Manuel was the finance minister. He often spoke about counter-cyclical economics. So we were in a good shape in the 2000s. Now we need to try and get back to those levels, because we even tipped a 5.2% growth one of the years, 2000. So for me, let's reflect on the good, let's reflect on the bad. But now, what for me would be the single biggest project that we need to move forward with? Aside from the disenablers I spoke about, we are a wonderfully talented country. We underestimate our talents very often, and we underestimate diversity as probably our single biggest strength in the country, because in that diversity, that diverse mix of people, if you draw out the best of everyone, and I'm sorry, Cathy, this is sounding cliched by now, But let me, because you started off with the Springboks, let's end off with the Springboks. And I know everyone's using the same example, but it's a very good example because that is a very diverse team of people. Now, I went and visited them on the Friday before the weekend of the French game, and I saw the people from all walks of life, very different backgrounds, with their wives and their kids, just getting on like one big happy family. And I remember sitting there with my son and saying, but this is how South Africa should actually look. Mm-hmm. My son and I debated it on the train back to Paris. So for me, we need to embrace, not shun diversity. And we need to optimize the talent that every single South African brings. Rather than diminishing those talents, let's extract those talents, and we will be an unbeatable nation if we do so. We've demonstrated that when we apply that diversity and when we stand together united, we are unbeatable. We face some of the worst situations, and ironically, our country works best when we've got our backs to the wall. And that's how I'm confident we will pull out of this energy crisis in time. We will get on a different economic growth trajectory, as negative as some people are, understandably. But I think what gives me inspiration and hope every day is when I look at the raw talents of many, many people in our country that those talents have not been optimized yet. And we need to optimize them, and we will become a formidable force. We've got all the ingredients for success here. But let's just pull together as a nation. Let's focus on those areas that bring us together, that pull us together, rather than those areas that pull us apart. Pulling us apart, as we're seeing in other areas of conflict in the world, look what you get. You just get a wasteland. Let's move on to a socially cohesive nation where everyone's talents are recognized and rewarded. That would be my vision for South Africa in the next 5 years.
Do you think that in the next 30 years, given the trajectory that we are on, and I know that you speak about how hopeful you are because of all of these measures and conversations that you've been part of and committees that you're part of, that, it is possible to turn things around. What is the opportunity cost if we don't?
I think your opportunity cost is the generations that come, right, and how you write history. So for me, when you look at yourself in life, you say, look, no one is going to live forever. I know some people live their lives like they're going to live for 2,000 years. So unless you're in Greek mythology, you're not going to live 2,000 years. So they accumulate things. And for me, it's about what contribution can you as an individual make? What impact can you have? So if you have a particular set of skills or talent, how do you apply that talent to make maximal impact in society? And making maximum impact is the best dividend that you can ever get. So if we look at the next 30 years, those 30 years will be built on a sound platform. If we get people like you and I, Cathy, who are living the here and now, to have a maximal impact in that sphere of influence that we have got, however big or small that sphere of influence is. And that's how I believe people need to live their lives. Live your life to see what impact can you have on society.
All right. Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations once again on the award that you've received.
Thanks very much for having me, Cathy.
It's a pleasure. It's 11 o'clock, time for the latest news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Cathy. In your top stories, shock as rape allegations emerge at a private boarding school. And the Senzo Meiwameda trial continues. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. The alleged rape of 3 girls at a private boarding school in Butterworth in the Eastern Cape has left their parents traumatized. The girls are below the age of 10, while their alleged attackers are aged between 10 and 13. The allegations surfaced after social workers conducted a routine wellness check at the school. Cases of rape have been opened, and education authorities are providing psychosocial support services to girls. This parent is distraught.
I was repeatedly raped by 7 boys aged between 8 and 13 years. I was on denial. I didn't accept what had happened to my little angel. When she was taken to another level, I was called by the social worker, told me every step, everything. She was told by my 9-year-old daughter, and I cried. It was hurtful. It was painful to hear those things that had taken place to my kid.
The incidents have sparked outrage among stakeholders in the province. Provincial Education Department spokesperson Malibongwe Mtima says they are investigating the incidents.
We activated our counsellors for debriefing and counselling. Despite that, a case has been opened with the police, and an investigation is underway also within the department to determine the extent of the situation so that the sanction can be equivalent to the extent of crime that has been committed. Apart from that, we want to call upon all parents to work with us to ensure that issues of this nature are reported so that learners can get the support at an earliest convenience.
The investigating officer is expected to be back on the stand in the Senzo Meiwameda case in the High Court in Pretoria this morning. Sergeant Vusumuzi Mohlahlana will appear as the state gets set to lead evidence regarding vehicle tracking data in the trial within a trial. 5 men on trial for the murder of the soccer star in Vosloorus in the east of Johannesburg in October 2014. The defense is challenging the admissibility of alleged confession statements of the 2 of the accused. Pelma Kubane reports.
The defense concedes accused Bongani Ntanzi was assaulted, tubed and tortured into signing the alleged confession statements. Following the arrest of Ntanzi on the 16th of June 2020, Ntanzi made one of the confession statements at the Moroka police station in Soweto on the 19th of June and the other at the Boksburg Magistrates Court on the 24th the same month. Ntanzi alleges there were various stops that were made, including Germiston, Alberton and Orlando, where he was assaulted and tortured. Sergeant Mohlahlana denies the assault and also denies the various stops.
EFF leader Julius Malema has called on African leaders to make the economic development of the continent their priority. He was speaking during the launch of the African Institute in Kenya. Malema says the issue of migration can only be addressed when African leaders develop the capacity to resolve their socio-economic problems that their countries are facing.
We don't want visas. We want one currency for Africa. Our currency can be more powerful than the pound and the dollar combined. And if we safeguard our minerals and protect them and say out of these minerals, we are producing a currency that is going to compete internationally.
And finally, a company belonging to the Hollywood actor Robert De Niro has been ordered to pay a former employee more than $1 million. Graham Chase Robinson had alleged that she was subjected to years of sexist behavior and harassment. The jury in the civil trial found De Niro not personally liable, but that the company, Canal Products, had engaged in gender discrimination and retaliation. De Niro's attorney, Richard Schoenstein.
For Mr. De Niro, it's a complete victory. He had lots of claims lodged against him personally over the last 4 years, and they have all been either dismissed in the course of the litigation or rejected by the jury. So personally, as to Bob De Niro, it's a complete victory.
Recapping your top story, the alleged rape of 3 girls at a private boarding school in Butterworth in the Eastern Cape has left their parents traumatized. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 11:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Mzansi,
We thank you for what you did yesterday, today, and what you will do tomorrow to meet your tax obligations. By submitting your income tax returns on time and keeping your personal and banking information up to date, you have made your tax matters daily matters. Our gratitude as SARS is immeasurable. We thank you for contributing to our country's prosperity. Visit sars.gov.za to keep your details updated. Your tax matters. SARS at your service.
Borussia Mönchengladbach knows that only a win will make their plan to get to the top half a success. But VfL Wolfsburg's game plan is to grab victory away from home to cement their top half position. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the exciting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and VfL Wolfsburg this Friday, 10 November at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way. celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
16 after 11 o'clock. It is the Friday wind down. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show. You've been hearing the music of Mamaki Mohlahlana, who is a vocalist. Mamaki Mohlahlana, who is a vocalist and award-winning songwriter. Mamaki, good morning to you. Thank you for your time and for agreeing to spend the next hour with us.
Hi, Cathy. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
You are described as an Afro soul traditional musician. Is that an accurate description of your music? How do you describe the music that you write, that you produce, that you put together?
Let me first start by saying good morning to the beautiful listeners of SAFM. You're saying in the Northwest Province. Let me start by saying, Cathy, I started by doing Afro soul, and then I later moved to Afro pop. And then after certain things happened in my life, I went to I then realized, this is not me. Afro soul is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Now I'm going to say I'm doing African jazz and Afro jazz, which is my music about spirituality. I'm more focused into healing people through music, through my kind of music.
Interesting how, I think we hear often in the lives of musicians, so much of their lives actually influences heavily the direction that they're taking musically. How would you describe that for you over the years? Have you found that it was especially significant when you underwent that moment, as you were saying, to be a spiritual healer, or did it happen before?
I think I grew up with this thing. I've always known that I'm special if I can say that. So
of course you can say you're special. You are special. You must never apologize for that. Own it. You've got to own it.
So I get to, growing up, I grew up at Budibe village, ne? And my mother was a lead singer there. So every time and have the session, people would be like, Mama, but do you hear yourself? Do you ever sit and listen to yourself? Do you hear how anointed you are? Your voice, you heal people when you sing, And I think I've always known, but I just didn't have it in me. I didn't believe it in myself. But now I've grown and I'm doing the things. Yeah.
Getting into music, was it an easy decision for you?
It wasn't. It wasn't because, as when you're a child at home, your parents always expect for you to study, go to school and do wara, ne? But I remember I had a conversation with my mother. I told her that I know this is what you want for me, but music is what I want for myself. This is what I want to do. And I think this is what I'm good at. And I need to do this so that I can serve my purpose, you understand? So it wasn't an easy decision because I know I have siblings, my sisters were always like, no, we don't want you to do this. What if the music thing doesn't work out? But it takes you as a person to believe in yourself and believe in your dream. And I've always, like I was saying that earlier on, I've always known that I'm going to make it. And it took me to make them believe it's going to work out. And now they're happy, they're proud of me, and they're supporting me all the way.
It's always great when the story actually works out in the end. We're in conversation with Mamaki Mohlahlana, who is an award-winning musician. As you heard there, she describes her music as African jazz, Afro jazz, and not necessarily Afro soul. We'll continue the conversation with her on the other side of this.
Experience a spectacular visual feast.
From Prella to Picasso, Pogela to Pemba.
More than 500 works.
Kolowane, Kandinsky, Kenridge and Clark.
Exploring the diversity and looking to the future.
Visit Breaking Down the Walls, 150 years of art collecting at the Iziko South African National Gallery in the company's garden, Cape Town. Open Monday to Sunday from 9 to 5. iziko.org.za.
28 years ago, two great outfits of global rugby met in the Rugby World Cup final.
The Springboks and the All Blacks.
The Boks had a good day in the office in 1995 and lifted the Webb Ellis Cup on home soil. Amabokoboko have silenced the All Blacks once again.
At the Rugby World Cup Final France 2023 in search of their fourth title. La la Zanzi Afrika.
Back-to-back victors and four-time champions of the Rugby World Cup.
An extra seat has been booked for a flight back to Africa Tonga for the Webb Ellis Cup to travel with the world's best rugby national team. Amabokoboko. Congratulations to the Springboks.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Dumela, Cathy the Mamaki. You know Cathy, that lady since in antiques Setswana, or should I say Setswana from antiquity? Se se tlololo, se sa pika-pikang ngwana. Se bua fela sentse jalo ka mmino. A tshware fela jalo. You know, I feel like speaking Setswana when allow me to speak Setswana on English radio station. Tshwara fela jalo kgaite lentswe la gago le boleta le boruma la ntitse bosa le monate. Dentse fela jalo, you know, you have a reality. Your voice is so silky soft. Tshwara fela jalo kgaitsadi o ipele ka puo ya gamme. Ra re puo ya gamme kopelo. Motlhala wa motho ke molemo wa gago. Tshwara fela jalo bua dipuo pha mo Mel Park. Kwa kgomo mogala tshwara thata e se utlwa se bodu wa kgaoga. Tshwara fela jalo kgaitsadi ka lentswe le molotsana. Modimo ke o.
Oh, Setswana se monate yang. Yo, my producer level is blushing because he's Tswana, so he's just like he's on cloud 999 right now. Mamaki Mohlahlana is our guest for today. Mamaki, do you get that a lot? Because I think just that praise for how you are able to keep and preserve the integrity of the language. He's saying that you are speaking the original Setswana, the antique Setswana.
Tota maitshwantse jalo. And ke a mo leboga ntate ko Mel Park ka gore allow me to speak Tswana to Cathy. Ke tle ke dire batswana ba gaetsho ba nne motlotlo.
Please go ahead.
We get a whole lot of artists mo gae bana ba ba lekanang le nna ka dijara ka dingwaga o itlhelele gore ha ba tlhole ba itse setso sa bone ga ba tlhole ba itse puo ya bone. Now with the kind of music that I'm doing, I'm trying to make sure that Setswana ha sena go nyelela gotlhelele. O gopole gore gone yanong ha o lebile the way go diragalang ka teng in the music industry, ha o bua ka Setswana batho ba lebile gore o tshwantse gore o bo dira di-traditional dance ne. I'm not sure if wa tlhaloganya ke bua ka di-traditional dance. O batho ba ba parang makgabe bo seope o bina mole, but yaanong nna ke tlisitse se sa gore I can actually express myself better ka leleme la gamme e leng Setswana. Ke dirisa bass guitar, ke dirisa keyboard, ke dirisa drum, ke dirisa marimba, ke dirisa ke go kgona go itlhalosa botoka bonolo jalo ka gore ha re le batho mo botshelong ha re tshwane, we're not the same, and ha ra belwa dilo tse di tshwanang. So go na le batho ba ileng gore ba reetsa traditional dance ha ba utlwa mmino wa Setswana o le mo di-traditional dancing ke gone ba utlwang sentle gore ba mo Setswaneng. Go na le batho ba bangwe ba tshwanang le rona ha ke tsa keyboard be ke ba hale e be ke simolla ke re nna ke jetlhapi ke gone ba nkutlwang sentle ke gone ba itlhaloganyang ba ikutlwa sentle le bone that is why ke re ha re le batho ga re rate di-genre tse dinosi tse di tshwanang so ke leka ka bojotlhe go dira gore le bao ba tshwanang le nna ba fitlhele le gore ha ke kwala mmino ka Setswana ke o dira ka tsela e ke dirang ka one African jazz and Afro jazz ke se ba atimela ka gope go nne le gore Setswana se nnetse ruri mo botshelong le bana ba rona ha batla the next coming generation ha ba tle go timelwa ke Setswana.
Wow, Mamaki, I think you've expressed yourself very beautifully there around why it is why it's important for you to not only make music in your mother tongue, but what that says to you and what it says to those around you and the coming generation. So thank you so much for that. Is it hard? Is it hard to establish yourself as an artist when you are so clear about what you want to sound like, and the fact that you're also writing music in your mother tongue?
It's not easy at all because you get a whole lot of people why can't you just stop doing African jazz or Afro, and do my piano and do what do you call do R&B, and as Kile Mama Ki Mohlahlana, I know who I am. I know what I want. And one thing clear with everybody, they've been around me, change mindset. I think they now have respect for me because I've never ever keep on change just because Sis Cathy is doing radio and she's doing my piano. Now I'm gonna do my piano. I'm not confused. I've always known and this is why now and when Sis Cathy, because we meet people who would want to take advantage of us as Rekele Mosadi, more industry. But I'm very grateful that I have the most supportive family and the most supportive friends and the most supportive husband. Every time I go back to the drawing board, I sit down with them and I tell them this is not working out, but I'm not going to leave what I'm doing. I'm going to keep on doing African jazz. I'm going to keep on doing Afro jazz. And yeah, I end up winning. Look at me today. I'm on SAFM. Hello.
Mamaki Mohlahlana is our Friday wind down guest for today. Of course, I'm going to bring you more of her music as well on the other side of this. You can send through your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107 and the number to dial if you want to speak to her a little later in the program, 086 000 2032.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your producer as well. Thank you for bringing your guest, man. We are those who are listening to Motsweding on Saturday around 1 o'clock. That's where I first heard it from. I don't know, man, they remind me of those, we call it folklores or folk tales. They are coming from there. Now you're listening to that one of Hageji Kapike no Hamisi. I'm explaining to my son now that why is she saying she doesn't eat fish? Because now she's surprised that there's anyone who's not eating fish. Oh, Maki, Raholebukisa Tota, Relebukela Mino Waka, Hoki SRC Moblofontaine.
In your headlines, Defense Minister Thandi Modise says over 4,000 people have been arrested for illegal mining-related charges in the country. She was speaking in Pretoria in a media briefing in which she and her security counterparts provided an update on progress made to combat crimes related to illegal mining. The alleged rape of 3 girls at a private boarding school in Butterworth in the Eastern Cape has left their parents traumatized. The girls are below the age of 10, while their alleged attackers are aged between 10 and 13. And the head of the Eastern Cape Human Rights Commission, Dr. Aileen Carter, has called for the extension of the school nutrition program to early childhood development centers. This call comes after the commission highlighted in a report the devastating incidences and consequences of hunger in the Eastern Cape. I'll have details on these and other stories at 12.
Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Katie and the listeners. TP from Mohlahlana. The song I've just heard just invoked in me some kind of spirituality. The song Nahakeji Tlapi. Yeah, it's a very beautiful song. By the way, my mother was a Tswana, and then I've got that little Tswana blood in my body. So I'm so overwhelmed with joy about this artist that you are interviewing there. I would love to have her album, TP from Mohlahlana.
Madume ausketi le moeng wa gago mo ke a leboga man ga tsela ke mo ga ke mo reditse o nkgopotsa botuksenganga o nkgopotsa WHP ga na re make Setswana fashionable ga tsela ka motswana ga itso a re mutlagang ka feta ga bo a re go tlala tshwara yalo masego le nala di go atele re go eleletsa tsotlhe tse di segang mo mineng wa gago tswela pele ga tsela ka ke a leboga.
Mamaki, you are invoking all of the Tswananess that exists in the SAFM community. You're listening to the Friday Wind Down. It is the talking point, and our guest for this Friday is Mamaki Mohlahlana, who is an award-winning vocalist and songwriter. Mamaki, I wanted to speak to you just about your journey in the industry, and I wonder just if there are lessons, important lessons, it can maybe be just 3 that you can share with us that you believe have actually contributed to your journey being what it is.
Okay. My journey in this music industry, Sis Cathy, has never been easy. I believe a whole lot of artists can attest to that. I'm not the only one. But one thing that I've learned about this industry is that you need to be humble as always, and every time you must learn, be willing to learn from other people that came before you, that knows the industry better than you. Another thing that I learned is that there will always be those people that will always try to take advantage of you or try to use you. But you must always know how to dodge those kind of things. And most importantly, you must know who you are. Be you. At the end of the day, you must do you.
And that is such an important message. I want to take Thapelo, who's calling us from Centurion. Thapelo, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Thapelo.
I'm all good. Dumela Mamaki.
Hello, Thapelo, le kae?
Yaanong re mo radio o tla re o botse Thapelo yaanong.
Yo, abuti Thapelo le kae? Oh, that's my brother.
Oh, Thapelo, you are so sneaky. You are so sneaky.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to
how are you? How are you, Thapelo?
I'm all good, Kathy.
Yes.
No. Na le Mamaki bo mme ba rona ke di sisters.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So ke ngwana wa go gae o ke a botua gage, and one thing I don't know, because this program is still more halfway. I don't know if did she tell you that she comes from a musical family. Her mom, my mom, everybody where we coming from. we are all singing. We are all singers.
No,
and,
she didn't tell us that. She just told us that she was the special one, So we thought, for all we know, none of you even enjoy listening to music. She hid it from us.
No, she's very special in the way that, it doesn't matter where you put Mamaki. You put her in a gospel group, she will stand out. You put her on a different genre, she will still come up with a song. And that's the type of person she is. She has not closed herself in a corner and saying, "This is me." Like she was explaining earlier on about the Setswana music, all those things. So, but over and above everything, I think, Mamaki, you are very, very, very talented. Make sure that you shine and shine and shine. Who you are, like you said, we So we are very behind you, and we thank God that you are still continuing with this gift, this talent, because this is something that all the people from Masibi family, they are singers. Yes. So we are very much encouraged, and the more importantly again, she's representing a province, double HP, Bukabelo, some of the musicians come there. And the worst thing about this thing, I'm saying the worst thing, she's coming from a very, very rural place. But she did not say, "No, I'm coming from this rural place. I'm not going to pursue this career." She has just made sure that she's doing whatever that it's in her. So, Mamaki, all of the best.
Tapelo,
thank you so much.
What a lovely, lovely call, especially given the fact that you are part of her family. Just to, take the time to publicly reaffirm and acknowledge her gift is so incredible. Mamaki, how do you feel?
I'm on tears. They know Kisibeto. I'm a crybaby. I'm crying. I can't even hold my breath. What a warm surprise. Thank you, Abutita Bello. Thank you so much. Means a lot coming from you.
Okay, thank you.
I can only imagine, Mamaki. Tapelo in Centurion, thanks for calling in. Even though you were sneaky there, but it was a lovely surprise nonetheless. Tapelo, thanks for that call. It is the Friday wind down. Our guest is Mamaki Mohlahlana, who is an African jazz, Afro jazz musician. We'll continue the conversation with her after this break.
The Kosi Nation says, Ikosi alphela umoya, but the Bucks are confident that yonke indawo ibhakabhaka liyaphumelela. Who are the real kings of Soweto? Gold and black or black and white? Uhamba nobani, Amakhosi or Amabhakaniya? This is the DSTV Premiership, the Soweto Derby. Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 11 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Manchester United are only interested in maximum points to keep their fans delighted.
Fernandes, a captain's goal.
However, Luton Town FC are not willing to travel back to Kenilworth Road without the valuable 3 points.
If it's a Tahitong, listen to that noise.
Will the Red Devils seal victory at Old Trafford, or will the Hatters prevail away from home? This is the Premier League. Catch the thrilling encounter between Manchester United and Luton Town FC. The Saturday, 11 November at 4 p.m. Live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
What was that sound? Was it a life support machine in an ICU ward? Was it a car reversing for the driver to take another look at a woman he saw at the bar last night? Or was it the birth of a new robot machine about to change the world? This time, you decide. It's your story. The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Morning, Cathy. The song that we have just played right now is so good, and it evoked in me the memories of Busim Tongo. Is in any way the lady influenced by her? Thank you very much. This is Malose from Limpopo. Bye.
Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
Hey, good afternoon. Morning. This is Cathy. I thought this afternoon. It's Marumo Maiking. Mama Ki, I know her personally. She used to perform around here. Kimorata Tata, very, very talented lady. Remotloka and then Kimolele Holas Chana Gere. Hate Unskukan Tatolom Pumalanga Batla Western. You had the Kabutlu Hanka Heta Ware Hotel. Yana Nekere Mama Kiri Habu Motuma, Hotebe Pa Chua, Vikaneka, Vivisekelezeka Strana Sarona, Kilebo Hatata, Horavale SAFM Humpino, Abilele Milornaco, and Banani. Thank you, Ralebo Hamamaki, Marumo Mahikin. Thank you, Skethy.
I must say, I'm enjoying all of the excitement, especially from the first language, the mother tongue Tswana speakers, about us bringing Mamaki on the show. Mamaki, I want to talk about your journey going forward as an artist, and just really when you look at the industry, what gives you hope about the future of the industry, being a young artist that really still has so much to offer?
Well, I'm 1% is Kathy. I think by now you already know and you can feel Mama now Kinali, I'm one person that is very positive about life. Even when I am aware that it's not easy, or it's a bit impossible for me to achieve certain things. People around me, they know I always push. I push and I push until I get what I want. And I think this is why there's a space for me in this industry, and one day I'll make it and all my people will be proud. And another thing, my music, if you can listen to my music, the reason why I'm so positive and so how can I put it? Okay, let me skip that. The reason why I'm so positive about everything, about my music and my journey in this industry is there's Buhleben Dalo, there's Thandiso Maswai, there's Umama Judith Sipuma, people that I look up to, people that I always listen to their stories, the beginnings and everything. These are the people that makes me look at things in a different way. When you look at Buhleben Dalo, she started with what's the name of the group? The Soil, ne? And then after that, she went and did her own thing. And I think my music and her music it's a little bit more the same. I don't know, Mara. The kind of music that she's doing, it's the kind of music that I'm doing, and this is why I'm saying I'm gonna make it. And I'm positive about this. And one day I'll give you a call and say, shout out to MM. She's in.
and I want to explore that idea a bit more with you, Mamaki. When you think about success, what would be your measure of ultimate success, where you will look at whatever's happening in your life and think, yes, this is what I have been working towards. I have finally been able to get there?
Okay. Me performing internationally, me having my own recording studio and my own record label, being able to help out these young girls that are looking up to me, they can't afford or they can't reach to whatever heights that they want to reach. That will be my ultimate success, being able to help those in need. I know they're musicians and they cannot afford to do things by themselves. That will be my ultimate success.
Are there particular people that you have looked up to as you were growing up that you think have really inspired you to take the route that you are on?
Yes, I'll start with, I've been mentioning their names. So Tandiswa, there's Gloria Bosman, may her soul rest in peace. There's Umama Leta Mbuli. There's just a whole lot of them. The Omochai, Kiss for New Vest, with double HP, may his soul rest in peace. I have a whole lot of list. There's this one that I've worked with on my single. His name is David Teimakot. He has helped me a whole lot in grounding myself as an artist. And Bra Atamahlati, he plays violin. There's Mama Dolly Stilwan here in Mahikeng. People, every time when I'm struggling or feel like quitting, I talk to them, I call them because they have been here for years. And there's Abuti Lucas Senyatu, people that they come from the Northwest Province, they've been in this industry and they're still here. They inspired me a whole lot, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful to them because every time I'm going through something, I call them, Mama, I'm failing, Mama Dolly, Brade, what is it that I can do? And they're always there for me. This is why I'm saying I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be having these amazing souls. They're always there for me. Whenever I'm in need, I just pick up my phone and I call Brade, I call Bra'ata, I call Mama Dolly, or I text her even. But Mama Dolly, I'm quitting. She's like, don't, because your time is now.
Yeah.
Don't. Yeah.
Mamaki, as we get ready to round off the conversation, are there particular productions that you're currently involved in that you want to tell our listeners about, live performances that you want to invite people to before we close off the show?
Okay. I'm busy with my debut album, which I think I'm going to release next year, 2024. And now I have an event, the 18th of November this month, 2023. It's at Klapeng in Mahikeng. The name of the event is Tito Yangwao Cultural Event. I really wish Botswana could come and witness this great thing that will be happening. And I think, that's about it for now. And then I'm nominated for the Satma Awards, South African Traditional Music Awards, on 2 categories, which is Best Setswana Artist and Best Upcoming Artist.
Absolutely. I'm sure they will. I don't need to tell you about the support that you have from South Africans. They've certainly shown you a lot of love in the last hour. Mamiki Mohlahlana, we wish you all of the best with your career. And thank you so much for coming on to the Friday Wind Down.
Thank you so much, Sis Cathy. May you be blessed.
All right. That, of course, brings us towards what is effectively almost the end of our show. That's because I want to leave you with some of her music. It's been a pleasure, as always, being in your company throughout the week. We will get ready to do it all again on Monday morning. Please be safe out there if you're driving, if you're traveling long distance, especially over the upcoming weekend. And until we meet again, stay blessed.
A very good morning to you, Cathy and Mama Kida. Bogang here from Botswana. Well, basically, I'm actually enjoying the interview. I'm getting to learn a lot about Mamaki. I first heard her performing her song Ga ke je Tlhapi ke Noga live at Ubuntu in SA. It was quite phenomenal. It was quite phenomenal. She, that's what we call talent. That's what we call raw talent. For someone to articulate themselves such beautifully in vernacular language, it's something extraordinary that we have lost as Africans. These days it's all about mapiano, R&B, this, that, hip hop. It's like we're losing the culture, and it's quite beautiful to come across someone who still holds the culture, and she does it with everything in her. Having had the opportunity to meet her, and I've sat down with her, and I honestly, she's going places. She's going to very far places. Keep it up, Mamaki. Keep it up. Beautiful stuff.